Everyone, one of the things I do want to say when we kind of talk about this is I really don't want you to lose the fact that people have been through some very, very difficult situations. I mean, it could be trauma in their life, especially when they're young. It can be military. It could be a car accident, different stuff that happens in their lives. It can be modeling behavior, growing up in an environment with very unhealthy behavior and how things are doing. And it can result in profound insecurity. And PTSD is a very, very real thing. And lots of people in the situations that we have now, and there's in the military, there are certain classes you can take and things you need to do. And I'm not trying to downgrade this at all. There are really emotional and psychological disorders. If you take the military class on how to work with military personnel, how you actually, who've been in those situations, how not slamming doors, letting them lead. There's certain things that you can do to make the experience better for them. And this isn't something I want you to, this is something that is really rooted in real things, and it's beyond just people being difficult. You need to be very understanding and identify those things. All right, so we spoke a little bit about how to, the advantages of working with healthy people. And sometimes I guess the question is, how do you find some of these people? So how do you avoid them? So what should you be looking for to avoid them? As I said, there's so much stress in working with these folks is you do want to be able to spot them for one of two reasons. One, you're either going to find out that you're in a chance of a high probability of a difficult situation, or is this someone that you want to work with or not? Now, I always say one thing, and this is a little aside, is being a great prospector gives you complete freedom in this. When you think about this, if you can only work with 10 people or 20 people, the advantages of being able to spot them is you can choose who you want to work with. But the only way that happens is when you're a great prospector, because you actually have more people to work with than time or choose to work with. If you want to sell 20 houses, then you can maybe, if you have 40 prospects, you can pick the best 20 prospects. Does that make sense? So that is one of these things. So how do you spot them? What are you looking for? So there are certain things. Now, this is not everybody, but sometimes maybe you will think about someone difficult and see how this kind of looks. Some of them have very trendy clothes. It's very important to them that they are very trendy and they're the person, right? Maybe to the point where it's unhealthy. They have very flashy cars. They have statement houses. Whether they can afford any of these things or not, they have these things because it's very important of how people look at them. They tend to be know-it-all talkers. And that is one of those things that they have an opinion on everything. And where you'll really see it is they'll tell you about your job and don't ask you about your job. They tend to tell you more about the real estate business. They know all the answers about the real estate business. They know all the things, and they don't ask you about your job. They tend to tell you about your job. And they seem to know everything else, no matter what the topic is, from real estate to brain surgery, right? And the other, so you want to, it's kind of those clues when you're talking with people, you get to know people. And you also want to avoid martyrs, heroes, and victims. And what do I mean like that? It's, we think about when you've worked in maybe a business and it's the person that always has to stay late. They always have to be the one. They become the martyr. And I think some of you want to kind of think about this is maybe think about relationships at work, relationships you've had, those unhealthy people in your work environment. They're always the martyr. It's always them. Or they're the hero. They have to come in and fix everything and no one else can do it but them. Or they become the victim. It's always why me. Some of these things that you think about will help you a little bit in kind of picking them out. So dialogues, they also have dialogues that will kind of clue you in. And they might have trust issues. And the dialogue, I can't trust anybody. I know that person's going to take advantage of me. So you'll see certain dialogues they'll give you that they have issues with trust, right? That's not a healthy relationship. Or it's personal security issues. That person's looking at me. I don't like the way they talk or look at me, or the way that they have personal security issues that are just out of line. super pessimistic or negative. You know, it's a beautiful day out. Yeah, but it's going to rain tomorrow, right? It's always, no matter what, there's the negative side of it. Well, interest rates are low now. Well, you know, they'll probably go up. You know, they always have a negative outlook at things, very pessimistic on things, or very negative about how things are going to go. Envy. Envy is one of those things, when you'll kind of see it, it will make you kind of cause you a little bit of pause. You know, that person has a new car. That person has a fancy clothes, or that person has, they're envious of what people have. They're not appreciative of what other people have or happy for someone. It's always that envy side that you should, that's just a clue to look at. The other one is they abdicate responsibility, right? It's one of those people that, you know, they had a heart attack at 41, but forget about the extra 100 pounds they carry, smoking, all the certain relationships that are going to drive a heart attack at 41, just behavior and or decision making they have, right? No moral compass. This is one, guys, you ought to be very, very cautious of, is when you meet that person that has no moral compass. Well, how much do I need to make? I can just get my boss to change my income statement. Or they tell you things about how well, I cheat on my taxes, or you don't worry about that. They're telling you things. Listen, if they clue you in and you barely know them and you can tell they have no moral compass, these aren't necessarily the people you want to do business with, right? Because you're getting in this relationship, and remember, this is a reflection exactly on you when you're selling someone a house or they buy from you, right? Especially when you're looking at sellers. Sellers that tell you how they've taken advantage of people or not told the truth always, and you're going to list their house. Are they going to disclose everything fully you need to know? Are they also one of those people that would throw you under the bus if something happens? Well, my agent told me to do that. Or my agent's that, where they blame other people. Very careful. These are situations where it can have a real input, can have really strong things down the road if you do, in fact, list their house or sell their house, right? Inappropriate anger. If I don't get what I want, I'm going to punch them. That person we ought to hit with a bat. I mean, it's funny because over my years I've seen that happen. Literally, we're dealing with a guy with a broken arm because he had gotten a fight. He didn't like what I was saying. Literally took his sling off his arm, threw it on the ground. And I thought, well, he's probably going to break his other arm in the interaction we're going to have, right? And you just saw it coming. It's funny, that person, we never did finish out selling him a home because honestly, his behavior was so out of line, we wanted nothing to do with it, guys. And this is the one thing I want to make this point here, and we'll make it throughout this. You know, these aren't necessarily, there's a difference between a difficult person and a crazy person, right? That was a crazy person. We avoid nuts at all costs, right? And I don't want this to be lost in here, but nuts we stay away from. Crazy people we stay away from. Those people they can actually be physically dangerous. They can be financially dangerous to your future. That's different than someone who's just in a difficult situation, all right? Or they might layer that way. The other thing you'll see is inappropriate disclosure. They just tell you too much, right? We talk about sharing too much information. That is something that's a cautionary sign when you hear them just disclosing way too much information. They're argumentative, right? They become very argumentative. You know, you're a crazy idiot or you wouldn't say that, right? Everything becomes very argumentative about things. Now, I know we stay away from certain subjects right now. We stay away from politics and religion. And I know it's easy based on the environment we're in to fall into those patterns. But this is someone that's always argumentative about everything, right? And their relative to what happened is just out of line, right? The waitress forgot something, or I'm sorry, I didn't realize you wanted that, and it just becomes out of line. I always say, I used to take people out to dinner, actually as employees and different people I work with, because how they treat the waitress is very much how they're going to treat other people, and is very much an idea of, is this someone I want to do business or not, right? They're very judgmental, right? They look at someone and add thing and look how she's dressed, or look, they become very judgmental and using that to then extremes of who these people are. Intolerant. Liberals should be shot or conservatives should be shot. It's just way out of line. Intolerance is someone, is this who you want to do business with, right? Other dialogues, they focus on other people's problems, right? It wasn't my fault. He drove me crazy, right? He drove me crazy. It wasn't my fault that I took this swing at him and broke my arm, right? Tony has a problem with, or they're always talking about other people's problems. I told Tony a tour thing, let me tell you about it, of relationships they've had with other people. They're in their, they're in their 7th rehab center, that's why I'm broke, right? Not the issue with the rehab, it's the cost of it, right? So it's those inappropriate things. Guys, this is one of these things where, remember there's a difference between, it's not bad people, it might be bad behavior. I just want you to think about, but when you think about some of these things that just doesn't feel right or sound right when you're talking to them, this might be those situations where you start having to evaluate, and then we'll give you some strategies on how to move forward.